Dear students, hope everything is fine and you are spending a quality time with your parents and also with your studies. Dear students, today I am going to discuss with you a wonderful story about a Japanese doctor. A doctor who saves the life of his enemy. The story that I have taken today is from your supplementary reader for class 12th, and the chapter is chapter 4, The Enemy, written by Pearl S. Buck. And I request all of you to be very attentive. Before we enter into the story, I would like to read the introductory lines, the lines before you read part. And the lines go like this. It was the time of World War. Actually, this story is set in Japan during the time of World War II. An American prisoner of war is washed ashore in a dying state and is found at the doorstep of a Japanese doctor. Then after that there is a question given. Should he save him as a doctor or hand him over to the army as a patriot? So throughout the story, the doctor is in a dilemma. He was in a confused state because he was facing something for what he was continuously confused. He was in dilemma that should he save the life of an enemy, because saving the life of an enemy or saving the life of an American person, American soldier, was surely a crime against the government. So therefore, throughout the story, he was extremely confused. But finally, he does what his heart says. And now let us start the story. First of all, the writer explains about the place, the part where Sadao Hoki spent his childhood days. So his house was built at the Japanese coast, and there he played as a child at the same place, and he enjoyed his childhood. And something is about his father now. His father was a very responsible man. Though he never played with him, he never made any joke with him, but still his father did his best to give best education to his son. And he had to go through the infinite pains in order to give his sons the best education. And that time, when he was just a very young man, the doctor was a young man at that time, the war was not on. So therefore, the father thought that if he wanted to give best education to his son, then he was supposed to send him to America. So he sends him to America to learn. So when he sent him to America, at that time Sadao's age was 22. And at the age of 22, he goes to America, and there he learns surgery and medicine. And he spends 8 years in America, and when he was 30, he comes back to Japan. And his father, Sadao's father, saw him becoming a very successful man, very successful doctor, and at the same time, he saw him becoming a very successful scientist also. Scientist in what? Actually, this man, Dr. Sadao Hoki, not only he was a surgeon, but also with that, he had some special specialization in rendering the wounds clean. And this part is very important of the story, that he was master in that, rendering the wounds clean. And now the story goes like this. As I have told you, that his house was built at the Japanese coast. And in this story, in the beginning of the story, Sadao Hoki, he was standing out of his house, and at this time everything in his life was so good. He was so satisfied. He was standing out, and he was looking towards the beauty of the nature. He was looking towards the mist, the fog, and he was thinking that how after some time that fog would cover his house, the entire atmosphere. And then he began to think about his wife also. He began to think about her, that after some time he would enter into his house, and both of them, the wife and the husband, they would spend a very beautiful time. They had 2 children also. Inside the house they had 3 servants also actually. One servant was Yumi. Yumi was there. Yumi was a nanny that was looking after the children. Sadao Hoki had 2 children, and apart from this person Yumi, he had 2 other servants also, one cook and one gardener. And he was thinking about his wife, and he went to the flashback that how he met Hannah in America. So he met Hannah when he was in America. Hannah was also in America. That how he met her in the house of Dr. Professor Harley. And he was still thinking about his wife. The wife opens the door, the wife comes out, and both of them, they spend some time together outside the house, and Hannah puts her cheek against his arm, and everything was so beautiful, so fine. And then all of a sudden they saw some moving object, some movement at the sea beach. And both of them, they started looking towards that part, and they became curious that what was that. And then they came to know that was a man. And then they began to share their doubts that who that man could be. Then after some time they had to leave that place, because he was a doctor, and he thought he understood, he realized that there was some person who needed help. So both of them, the husband and the wife, they went near to that place, to that person, and they found that man was a white man. And this is the time, this is the part of the story that they became very much doubtful, because because that man was a white man. So that was a symbol of to be an enemy. So they were afraid that should they help the husband or the wife, should they help that person or not. And then they began to investigate that person, and this man saw that the man was bleeding also. So he took sea moss and he applied the sea moss on the lower back, right hand side of the lower back of this man. That part was bleeding, and he applies sea moss on that part. And after that they saw the battered heart of that man, and faint lettering, something was written on that cap. What was that? US Navy. And when they saw that, at this time, at this part, they were extremely afraid to see that man was a prisoner of war. And at this time they thought that the best they could do for this man was to send this man back to the sea. It was useless to save the life of this man. They were afraid. Why? Because if they help such a person, then they'll have to face the consequences, the government. So they'll have to be punished if they help this man. And also they were true patriots. So therefore they did not want to break any law. But they were in dilemma. He was a doctor also, and actually this man and his wife, both of them, they were trained in America. And in the story it is mentioned that the doctors which are trained by Americans, they are comparatively more sensitive, and they are very much confused. Then after some time, so finally they got to this conclusion that they decided to take this man inside their house. The father of Sadao was not alive. And you should remember one very important thing, that was the time of World War II. And during that time, Americans and Japanese, they were enemies. They were against each other. And finally, they decide to take this man inside the house. And when this, so they take this man inside the house, and they put the man in the house, in the room of the father of Sadao. Why? Because he was not alive, and that room was kept as it is, unused. So this man was sent there to that room, arranged. Dr. Sadao arranged everything for this man, and his wife was also there. And they thought that they would simply tell the servants and they would come and obey. But they understood that that was really a challenging task, challenging thing for them to convince the servants. And this man was set on the mat of the room. And you should remember one very important thing in this part, that Sadao was not sent along with the Japanese troops like other doctors. There was a very important reason for this, and you should remember this, that there was an old general. He was a high official in the army, and the old general was very sick, and also the patient of this doctor. Anytime he could need, that old general could need an operation, so he desperately needed him. So therefore, this man, Dr. Sadao, he was not sent with the troops, and he was with his wife. He was at home only. Now, starting the condition of this man, Sadao says to his wife that the man was to be operated, and he really badly needed the operation. And then Sadao told the wife to arrange water to clean the wound, to clean the man. Then the wife thought that she would not touch that American man, so the wife went to the nanny, Yumi. And then doctor says, okay, you tell Yumi and I'll inform the other servants. And when the wife, and at this time Sadao leaves the room, and wife, for some time, this wife was there for some time with this person, and she feels uncomfortable because she never spent her time with this white man like this. So she went to Yumi's room, and Yumi was with the children in the nursery, and she tells Yumi to arrange hot water, and she didn't tell her the reason that why that hot water was needed. And after some time, Yumi comes to that place with the hot water, and when Henna commands Yumi to wash that man, Yumi, all of a sudden, she becomes stubborn, and she did not want to touch that man, because she was also a Japanese, and she was also a patriot, and she was unwilling to touch that man, and she was stubborn. And at this time, this Yumi leaves that place, saying that she would not touch that man. Then at this point, Henna becomes helpless, so she had to do that alone on her own. So she cleans that man, and while she was doing that, when she started doing that, she was full of hatred against all the Americans. And when she started cleaning the chest part of that man, then all of a sudden she feels a compassion towards this person, this man. And then after some time, when she was still cleaning this man, Sadao comes, enters into the room in his doctor kit, in his surgeon bag, and the operation was now going to be started. And then she tells him that what was the reaction of Yumi. And at this time, they understood that the servants, they were considering them, they were taking them as the traitors, that they were doing something that they were not supposed to do. And now the operation starts, and Sadao tells his wife to help him in the operation. She was supposed to give anesthetic to the patient, but she says that she never did that in her life. But Sadao was also helpless. He had to take help from his wife. And when the operation was going to be started, she notices, Sadao's wife, Henna, notices the scars on the patient on his neck, on his body, and his tortured body. And at this time, Henna thought that how brutally this man was treated, and she thought that Japanese people were always loving people, and at this time she realized that Japanese people also tortured their enemies like the US people. And when operation starts, so Sadao touches the wound. When he unpacks the wound, that part, so blood comes out. And when the wife saw the blood, she starts vomiting, and she runs out of the room. And Sadao at this time feels irritated because he is involved with his patient, and he is worried about his wife also, and he wanted to help his wife, but unfortunately he couldn't go out because his priority was his patient. And then after that, after vomiting, the wife returns and the operation starts. And he, while Sadao was operating his patient, he was trying to find out that bullet. And after some time, he finds that the bullet was not inside in the kidney, but near kidney. So he finds pleasure in that. He is satisfied that he could. He thought that he could save the life of that man, and he continues. And after some time, with the precise cuts, he was able to take this bullet out of his patient. And while he was still operating, he was thinking about his American professors and how they taught him to operate, to deal with the bodies of the patients. That if you are dealing with the body of a patient, that you should have a complete knowledge of the body, complete knowledge as you have made that body. And operation was successfully he was able to take it out. And then after the third day of the operation, and during this time the wife was to take care of him, this patient, because servants were unwilling to help. So the third day he comes to see his patient, and he gets angry on him because he was a doctor and this man was sitting while he was supposed to lie down. So the doctor gets angry on him, and he asked him, "Do you want to die?" And at this point, this man he tried to say something. This patient wanted to say something, some words of gratitude to this man, but the man was not interested. This Dr. Sadao was not interested in what he was trying to say. Then one day, while the wife was taking care of him, this patient, he himself tells his name to the wife, and his name was Tom. And this Dr. Sadao, he was taking care of this patient every day, and but he was facing a big problem also. Wife was continuously telling the husband that we should do something for this man, because the servants are also reluctant. And she was afraid that if servants leave the job, and then after that when they go out of the house, and if they spread this news, the wrong news to the people, that we are the traitors and we are helping an enemy, so the results could be very dangerous. So therefore, the husband had to decide something. He had to take a very strong decision. So at this time, he starts writing a letter to the chief of police. So he simply starts 2 lines. He writes 2 lines, and then something happens in his heart that he couldn't continue. So, and he takes that letter, those 2 lines letter, and he takes that, keeps that into his secret drawer. And on the 7th day, 2 things happened. All the servants, 7th day, all the servants, they leave that house. 3 servants, and all these servants, they leave that house. And all the burden comes on the shoulders of the wife. She had to do everything now alone. She was mentally exhausted. She was physically exhausted. And the second thing that happened was that in the afternoon, a messenger from the old general comes at their house. And Hannah opens the door, and when she saw that messenger, she was extremely afraid to see. She thought that someone informed that person, the old generals, and therefore this man has come to arrest. And Sadao was also afraid, but he did not show any fear on his face, and boldly he speaks. And then that man says that old general was in pain. Actually, he did not come to arrest them. He came there to that place to call Dr. Sadao, because old general badly needed him. And at this point, the wife was quite relaxed, because she was satisfied, because that man didn't come to arrest. So at this time, Dr. Sadao thought that was now or never. He thought that surely at this point, at this time, he would tell the entire story to this old general. So he goes and he tells everything to the old general. Old general listens to him, and then he says that suppose, the thing that you did, And suppose if you are punished for that, then you will have to lose your life. And suppose you lose your life, and suppose you die, and if I need you after that, then who will come to help me? So therefore he decides, he makes a plan. He says that, don't worry, I have 2 assassins, and very trained professional assassins. I'll send these 2 assassins to your house. They'll come and they'll kill those that person without making any noise, without shedding any blood, and peacefully that will happen. So you go in peace. So Sadao was happy that at least finally he informed that very important thing to someone, important person, and he goes to his house, but he didn't tell anything to his wife. The wife was unknown, unaware about all this. And then he sleeps that night. He tries to sleep that night, but he couldn't sleep because he knew something was going to happen. That night was a very restless night. And in the morning he got up. He thought that man was no more. But when he goes to his room, he saw him healthier sitting, and there was gratitude in his eyes. And then he thought that maybe he forgot. Old general forgot, and the next night would be the night. And then he waits. Next night comes, second night comes. Then again the morning he goes, and he found that men sitting healthier, happier. And then again he thought maybe he forgot. And the third night comes, and the third day comes, third morning comes, and nothing happens. And at this time he was extremely restless, and he thought that he could not continue with that stress, and he had to do something now on his own. So now at this point he arranges his own boat for him. He arranges everything, the food, water, everything for him, and he tells him that now you are not going to stay with us. Take this boat. And he tells him that nearby there was an island nearby, a very small island, and that island was not worth fortifying because that was very near, and also no one lived there because during the storm season that island was submerged, and that was not the storm season. So he told him that he could do for the time being, for some time he could take shelter there until a Korean ship comes. And when a Korean ship comes, and that ship passes from very near to that place, because the water was many fathoms deep, so you could take shelter in that Korean ship. So at this time this man realized once again that doctor was saving his life the second time. What was the first time? When he was washed ashore, and when he was about to die, and how doctor treated him, how he took out the bullet. And the second time that he is making his escape plan, and he arranges everything to him, and he says that you take my flashlight also, and you reach there, and do not give this signal. He gives him 2 very important instructions, that signal me twice when your food runs off, and signal me once when you are still there, but everything is under control, once. And also he says that do not signal during the night, because in night if you do that it would be seen. And you can catch fish also, but you are supposed to eat that fish raw, because because fire can be seen. And then after this man goes to that island, and this man, Dr. Sadao, goes to the old general, and he informs him, tells him that old general, you didn't send anyone, and therefore that man ran away. And by saying this, Dr. Sadao so wisely puts entire blame of this man on the old general. Old general says he escaped, he ran away, and then he was so panicked, he was so afraid, he thought that he was the only one to be blamed. And at this time, at this point, Dr. Sadao realized that that old general was in the palm of his hand. And then the old general says, okay, suppose if this matter is opened, revealed, and will you speak in my favor? Then Sadao says, don't worry sir, I'll be with you, I'll speak in your favor only. And by making all this plan, this man, Dr. Sadao, was able to save the life of these men. And Dr. Sada goes back home and he sees that there was no flashlight there, and that was a signal that the man was not there, and he left that place because he caught that Korean ship. And after this all, he goes to his house and everything seems to be so peaceful. Servants come back because they were aware, they came to know that person, that enemy was not in the house now. So therefore, happily they also come, they also return. But Dr. Sadao was confused throughout the story, and even in the end he was thinking, he was unable to find out the reason that why actually he saved the life of this man. And I hope that you have understood and enjoyed the story.